All right, Joe, thank you for joining with me tonight. I appreciate it. I wanted to know if you could just tell me a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Joe Gregory, and my business is the Sales Catalyst, and I'm a sales and human performance expert, and I work with companies, teams, and people who sell to get better and grow their sales. Because in a world where everything looks the same to buyers, how you sell matters more than ever. And what buyers tell us is that their experience of you is the most important differentiator. Their experience of you during the sales process, they weigh more heavily. Yes, your company's important. Yes, your product and service is important, but it's their experience of you. So I work with folks to help them look and sound different than everybody else so that folks are not competing on price. I also work one-on-one with executives and business owners. I call that catalyst coaching, helping people take their effectiveness to the next level. I'm a human psychology performance expert. I have an undergraduate degree in psychology. I'm a trained Tony Robbins coach. I'm also a certified emotional intelligence practitioner and have an MBA as well.
Thank you so much for speaking with me today. I appreciate it. I know it's cold out there, but I just wanted to congratulate you on being the philanthropist of the month for January, starting in the new year, 2023, in the ACEs Matter. I actually had the opportunity to hear you speak to us as a reacher here in New Jersey. And so I am fascinated to speak with you again because by trade, I'm in sales. That's what I do professionally, to be honest with you. But I wanted to take this opportunity really to understand how you came to ACEs Matter, because ACEs Matter is about prevention of ACEs, the intervention of ACEs, and educating people about ACEs. I'm going to say ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. So I wanted to know, why is it important to you that the more people learn about ACEs and how to prevent them, if you can explain that?
Yeah, and so I was first introduced to adverse childhood experiences by a coach that I was working with. And this was back in the fall of 2016. And she recommended a book to me, Childhood Disrupted, by Donna Jackson. And that book was life changing for me, and I knew I'd had stuff happen, in childhood, and so many folks, we think of childhood issues as the trauma with a capital T, right? The major stuff, the sexual abuse and those types of things, and those are horrific and a big part of adverse childhood experiences. But there's a lot of other things, right? And what it was for me in working with this coach who introduced me to the book Childhood Disrupted, which I highly recommend, it provided an explanation to me of some things that have played out in my life for decades, right? Childhood issues playing out in our adult and professional lives. And so I really became interested in adverse childhood experiences. I'm also a psychology geek. I'm undergraduate degree is in psychology, and I've been a huge student of human psychology all these years, and really interested in, what makes people tick, right? Why do we do what we do? Why do we not do what we should do? And those types of things. And psychology plays such a big part of that, and ACEs is such a big part of all that, right? And
Right.
again, we don't use ACEs as an excuse, right, for things in our lives, but it is an explanation, right? And it
Right.
really explains patterns that have played out, I know, in my life and in the lives of other people. And so I follow ACE organizations. I went to a national ACEs conference in San Francisco in the fall of 2018 it was hosted by Nadine Burke Harris, and her great book, Deepest Well, right? She wound up
Yeah.
being the Surgeon General of the state of, California. So just having a deep interest in it. And my business, I'm a sales consultant and executive coach. So I'm working with around human performance with human beings, all day long. And I just see things play out. And along the way, I've always been involved in nonprofit organizations and thought it would be really cool to do something around ACEs at some point in time. And I follow certain ACE organizations on Twitter, and that's how you folks found me. And Cindy reached out to me and asked, hey, we need help with doing outreach to donors and to set up workshops. And can you help us? So that's my story around ACEs. I just think it's such Chanel, it's such a game changer for people when they can understand, oh, this is what's happening, right?
And you deal with a lot of, from the Sales Catalyst that I reviewed on your website, the salescatalyst.net, right, is the website in regards to you offering sales training and coaching to executives and so on. A lot of times you don't think that ACEs could be the root cause of certain habits and behaviors. So I wanted to know if you could explain, or how does that come across in your coaching with your executives and sales teams? Do you kind of filter that in of the ACEs?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's really interesting. A hot topic in working one-on-one with executives and with sales teams, as I do on my business, is around emotional intelligence. And several subcategories under emotional intelligence really can tie to ACEs. It's not always, right, but it can. One is impulse control, right? And so, like, working with salespeople, historically, buyers tell us, right, that salespeople talk too much, right? And that's that impulse, right? Or they jump to a solution too quickly, and it's like we can't control our impulses. That is a core emotional intelligence skill. Well, for people that had adverse childhood experiences, right, that's going to make impulse control a lot harder. They get triggered, and we go into fight, flight, or freeze mode. Another core component of emotional intelligence, and emotional intelligence really drives success for people in all professions. Another core component of it is stress tolerance, right? Well, if we've got accumulated chronic stress, right, from stuff that could have happened 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, right, that's still playing out in our life. And there's the old saying, right, the straw that broke the camel's back, right? We're never upset for the reason that we think we are. It's usually because of all the accumulated stuff. So we're not as emotionally intelligent as we can be if we're dealing with ACEs, and then you throw in current stressors, with the pandemic and just personal life stuff as well. So it plays out all over the place. And another key thing with emotional intelligence and in business, right, is how for professionals is how effective, and really for all human beings, how effective are we at dealing with ambiguity and uncertainty? And it's an actual module that I do around leadership development and dealing with ambiguity and uncertainty. Well, if you grew up in a chaotic or uncertain environment, right, and a lot of people did, it could be trauma with a small t, not a capital T, though it could be major trauma, right? You're going to be triggered by any sense of uncertainty or not knowing. We live in an uncertain world, right? And not knowing. And the pandemic really highlighted that and triggered a lot of stuff with people. The business world is very chaotic right now. There's supply chain issues, right? There's inflation. There's the war in Ukraine. There's a whole lot going on right now. So helping people deal effectively with the ambiguity and uncertainty and impulse control, stress tolerance, flexibility and adaptability are core emotional intelligence skills. All that's impacted by experiences that we've had throughout our life.
In regards to impulse control, emotional intelligence, self-awareness, these are things that come out of the education of knowing about ACEs. And so therefore, I wanted to know how you coach and develop someone who is in the sales field and being able to be successful in asking for the close, things like that, when they're trying to navigate those behaviors.
Yeah, and there's a couple things that come up for me around that, and specifically when it comes time to are we either going to do business or not do business, right? There's an intense human fear of rejection and being judged. And this is real, right? And you can read a lot of stuff. A lot has been written in the sales world, and just in general personal development around the fear of rejection and all this. But very few people realize that this is a core fear, because our ancestors thousands of years ago and hundreds of years ago, if you were rejected by the tribe and kicked out of the tribe, you died.
Right.
Right. So there's that innate need of sense of community and belonging. And when we ask for anything, right, we're taking that risk of them judging us or rejecting us. And so it's being aware that, okay, this is an ancestral fear that we still carry that we don't really need to carry anymore. So just the awareness of what's really happening, and tied to that, right? A big thing in sales and in life right now is, my nervous system regulated, or is it not? And most people, especially anybody that's been affected by ACEs, we're walking around in a triggered state all the time, right? We have adrenaline and cortisol pumping into our body. By definition, the old part of our brain is kind of running us, right? And the resourceful part of our brain slows down. It's not working as effectively as it can. So if we're dysregulated at all on a sales call, which most salespeople are, because they get caught off guard by a question that's asked, or they're nervous about asking for a next step, or they're rushed because of a previous meeting, or they're thinking about their sick child at home, or whatever's on their mind, we're dysregulated, right? And we're not as effective as we can be. We don't hear things that the customer is saying, right? We miss cues that are given to us. And importantly, if we're dysregulated, if our nervous system is dysregulated, they're going to feel that. Right. And now look at the other side of the table. We've got another messy human being sitting on the other side of the table with us. Right. And they have all their fears. And there's a lot of fear of being in a meeting with a salesperson, right? Because of the bad reputation that the stereotypical salesperson has. So now you got two dysregulated systems, right? So I have to be regulated to help calm them down so that they feel psychologically safe to open and share with me during the sales process. And my last comment on that will be buyer studies show, and the only studies that really matter are what are the buyers saying, right? Is that their number one determining factor when they purchase something of any value is, yes, your company's important, your product's important, your service is important, all that is important, but it's their experience of you during the process that they weight most heavily. Right.
Right. That rapport.
But unfortunately, everybody looks the same. Right. So then they just go to price because that's the only thing they understand. So how do we give them a different experience? And that starts with, I need to be regulated.
Thank you for that. It's very insightful. How are we practicing? I want to know how we got here. But before I do, I have one more question about it. In the media lately, there have been several violent incidents in public shopping places. And in your opinion, what should management teams be doing when tragedies happen in their stores or office spaces? What should leadership and management be doing to understand their employee ACEs, do you think?
Yeah, at the top of the list is they need to have professional help to help them with this, right? Because everything's, first of all, the scenes are typically horrific, right? But it also brings up everybody's stuff, right? Our own unhealed wounds inside of us get triggered by seeing this stuff, and it affects tremendously, performance at work. So what management can't do and leadership can't do is pretend that everything's all right, right? And that's a defense mechanism, by the way, right? In psychology now, there's a term for it called toxic positivity, pretending everything's always wonderful and always having to look for the good in things and putting a positive spin on everything. That devalues people and how they're feeling, right? And we really need to be able to tune into each individual and understand how they're feeling. And in those situations, if it's been in their environment or in their town or whatever, they need professionals to be able to come in and help facilitate all of that. And it just goes to about caring and understanding what the needs are of your people on your team.
that emotional intelligence you referred to earlier about, even from a leadership standpoint, knowing your people and understanding that they're individuals and treating each one accordingly, having that one-on-one relationship. You're so knowledgeable, and I just intrigued at how you married the two with the ACEs and the sales. And I just wanted to know if you're able to, I guess, package how you've got here, all your from the beginning to now in regards to your the sales catalyst, and yes, how you were able to do that with the ACEs now, and you're speaking with me. If you're able to take us that journey along your experience to now.
Yeah, and interestingly, my undergraduate degree is in psychology. So I've had a deep interest in human psychology from early on, and I think a part of that is my late father was bipolar. Okay, and this was at a time where there was more stigmatization around things, and thankfully the company that he worked for, he was able to get good help for it and proper medication, and he was a functioning executive. But those things did play out in our household, right, with having a manic depressive father in our household. And I think that's probably why I was really interested in classes around that. They actually called it abnormal psychology back in the day of my undergraduate days. And then I've just always been interested in, what makes humans tick. And I wound up being in sales and sales leadership and running branches and doing all those things. And psychology is all over the place.
It is,
right? Because any place where there's a human being, human psychology is playing out. And along the way, I've become a certified emotional intelligence practitioner. I'm a Tony Robbins trained coach, and people think of Tony as this great motivational speaker. He's a genius around human psychology, and he's got a lot of great material really around what makes us tick. And then I shared my story around how I came across ACEs, and I see it playing out all over the workplace and people's professional lives. And you mentioned earlier, shootings or mass things like that. And and this is a little bit morbid, right? But it's like I always wait, a couple of weeks after these mass shootings, and they're always typically, not always, but they're typically done by young white males. And you dig into their history, right, and childhood stuff, and you go, that's how this happened. And we're barking up the wrong tree on the fixes, right? For so many things. Why do we have an opioid epidemic? And the big focus is on we have to keep drugs, out of the country. No, the problem is we have an insatiable appetite for opioids in this country. Why do we have that, right?
The root cause.
ACEs plays into that. It plays into attendance issues. It plays into productivity and effectiveness issues. It's all over the place.
And I can see why you've been so successful. And I can see, as a sales professional myself, if you're able to increase your emotional intelligence and understand your audience and just have that rapport, it helps a lot more. I could see that. Yeah. And then also I was, when it comes to working with ACEs Matter and the influence, I know that 43%, I was on your blog, actually, or your Twitter page, and you had retweeted about an article from the Harvard Business Review recently in regards. It said 43% of our behaviors occur automatically, habitually, and reactively. I thought that was interesting from that. So even from a sales leadership perspective, an executive who is, being very determined and what their actions are, but they're just reacting to things that have happened. So in regards to that, does that motivate you as well into helping and with ACEs Matter of trying to retrain that brain wiring for a lot of those sales professionals?
Yeah, and reframing for people in general, and it's most humans, very few humans actually exercise free will, right? And that study's saying that, right? We're on automatic.
Right.
pilot, basically, all day, every day. And Henry Thoreau wrote when he was in Walden Woods hundreds of years ago that the masses of men lead lives of quiet desperation. We get programmed when we're little kids, and there's decisions. They're called key decisions that we make. And it's typically around, okay, this is what I have to do to protect myself. And we make that decision when we're 4 or 5 or 6, to use as an example. And that decision rules the rest of our life. Right.
The 5-year-old self is ruling in some places. I can believe that. You're
right. And it plays out all over the place, including in sales, including in leadership, in our personal lives. So we're on automatic all the time. And how do we disrupt that pattern? Right. And the first thing is to be able to recognize, oh, this is what's happening.
Education.
Right. It doesn't have anything to do with what's happening externally. And the metaphor, and it's kind of a goofy metaphor, but first I'll set the stage for the metaphor. Is you often hear from people that this person made me angry, right? And we put our judgments, interpretations on the world. No one has the power to make you angry. Right. Everything in life is an interpretation. Everything's neutral. It's our thinking about it that makes it happen. So what happens is we're on automatic all day long, right? And so this time of year, I live in Colorado. It's cold this time of year, and I get really chapped hands, and I get these little slits on my fingers, right? And they get sore and they hurt. Right. So like if I go to grab the car door handle and I hit the slit, it's like, oh, ooh, right.
Right.
But I don't sell my car saying that car hurt me.
No.
Right? No, it's a wound on me, right? And I need to let the wound heal. When I go to get keys out of the pocket or a wallet out of the pocket, and it hurts. I don't throw my pants out saying my pants hurt, right? But people go through relationships,
throw the person away.
Because it brings up our stuff. Sales and business, there's nothing, I like to joke, there's nothing like being married and in business for yourself or in sales to bring up all your stuff, right? We got all these wounds inside of us. The world hits them and we react. And then we're on automatic all day long. Right. We keep trying to change everything on the outside to make it just so that none of it pokes my stuff. Good luck doing that. Right. We got to look inside and see what needs to be healed so that we could live healthy lives, be more effective as a professional, be a better mom, a better dad, a better spouse, a better sibling, and a better citizen.
I like that. Thank you. Then slit on the hands. I can relate because that was happening to me.
Yeah,
it was. But it's one of the things that you don't, when it comes to something like that, when you put it like, you can't throw your hands away. And you shouldn't be able to throw the people away. You should look within yourself to see how you can make it a better situation. I like that.
Yeah.
So as you continue with this relationship with Aces Matter and your time, and I just want to know what is your hope for the increased awareness about ACEs in the public as it gains momentum, which I know it is, okay, and more people become aware of the root causes of a lot of things, which comes to be our adverse childhood experiences. What is your hope for that future?
It's the education level, and really my hope beyond ACEs more though is a blending of a healthcare system that doesn't separate that you've got physical health as one part of your health insurance plan and the mental health as a separate part. No, it's all one. Right, because one thing affects the other, and I'm thrilled that there are state initiatives and local initiatives around, pediatric offices using the ACE questionnaire. Right, I think it shouldn't just be around pediatrics. Yes, we want to get to the young people, but we need healthy parents. Right, the greatest gift a mom and dad can give their children is to be healthy emotionally, and most of us are not healthy emotionally when we're raising kids. So it becomes generational. So having a level of awareness for everybody of how ACEs play out and how mental health and having grown up in an environment with a manic depressive father and stuff, on how that impacts so many different things, and it can literally, last for generations. So I'd like to see a world where we really understand that these things are combined. And an example of that, and here's an example of that. In the summer of 2013, we're on vacation on Cape Cod, and I get an acute attack of hives. I mean, like, my body is covered with these welts, right? And first I thought, oh my God, I'm having an allergic reaction to seafood. And I'm like, oh my God, well, that's not good. I love eating seafood and stuff. But I went through all these over a period of months, all these different testing for food allergies, other types of allergies, all with the medical world, doing blood work, because hives it can be a symptom of an underlying disease like lupus and some other things. You know what was not one single, and the medical world is very, very helpful and very, very good, but not one doctor ever during those months asked me, what do you got going on in your life right now? Right? They're just looking for a medical problem. And I want to be clear, the medical world does, fabulous things, but it's got to be more holistic, right?
Yes. Instead of just managing the symptoms, our healthcare is really a framework around managing your symptoms so that you can keep doing what you're doing instead of actually getting to the root of that. I like that. Oh, that would be a great outcome if we could change the healthcare industry with this information about adverse childhood experiences. I think a lot of people would be a lot healthier because it all starts there.
Yeah, and what the research shows too, right, is that if you do have adverse childhood experiences, right, is that you're going to be less able to handle the stressors of life, right? They're going to, for somebody, and there are people that had, wonderful childhoods and all that growing up. And I want to be clear, overall mine was too, right? And that's one of the challenges is people, discount things that happened so long ago. But for folks that, have the ACEs, right, the stuff keeps piling up, right? So they have less tolerance for the ambiguity and uncertainty and stressors of life that come. And that's why, we know that we're in a mental health crisis right now. And I believe it's going to get worse because the pandemic just dredged up so much stuff.
Yes.
Over 2 years of uncertainty, on fire on people's brains, right? Mm-hmm. And it just, brings up everything.
Thank you so much, Joe. I appreciate your insight and just the time that you've put into this whole movement around ACEs and your relationship with ACEs Matter. Thank you for that, and hopefully you continue on.
Yeah, well, my pleasure. You folks are doing great work, and it's a game changer and a life changer when people can understand. Okay, there's not something wrong with me; it's what happened to me.
Now, what type of people would you like to follow your work?
Sales executives, owners of companies, executives in general. I do a lot of work around sales coaching and training, as we mentioned, and I do one-on-one coaching, which I call catalyst coaching for executives. And folks can find me at the salescatalyst.net.
That's right. Very good website. I checked it out.
Thank you. And I'm also on LinkedIn and Twitter and could be found there.
Thank you again for your time spent with me this evening.
My pleasure.
Bye-bye.
What would have life been like for you if you could have skipped childhood? If you could help people be better, healthier adults, would you? Truth is, the fact that every person on earth had to experience childhood is enough to care about the ACEs Matter cause. ACEs are so common that 1 in every 6 people have been exposed. Average childhood experiences, aka ACEs, are like time capsules of a traumatic past and a looking glass into a blurry future. ACEs are one of the root causes to poor employee performance, mental illness, crime, disease, and even poor quality of life, just to name a few. According to the CDC, 8 out of the 10 leading causes of death in the US correlate with the exposure to 4 or more ACEs. If they can be predicted, they can be prevented. ACEs Matter is on a mission to stop generational cycles of ACEs, and you can help by starting a campaign or making a small tax-deductible donation. You could help 1 million families get the support that they need to treat and heal from childhood adversities that have affected their adulthoods. We want to hire, train, and deploy 250 community influencers by the end of 2025. Our goal is to raise $1.3 million in order to begin with operations for this initiative. Donations would go towards mobile deployment of trained trauma professionals, community outreach, and door-to-door awareness. Get involved, see the results, save a life, and repeat. Visit acesmatter.org to learn more. Let's be real, we need to heal.